All right, let's take another demo. This time what we're going to do is we're going to configure a NAT instance, and then we're going to configure a NAT gateway. So let's take a quick look at our diagram and see where we're at this point. So we've already created our VPC. We've created 3 of our subnets, 2 private and the DMZ or the public subnet. We've created an instance in the private subnet for DB, and we've created a public instance, which is the web. We haven't created an application instance, but again, that's redundant. You get the point at this point. We also have deployed them in different availability zones. So we've configured this the way it is. We've configured our routing tables. We've configured an internet gateway. What we need to do now is give the private instances, the private subnets, in this case, the DB subnet or the 192.168.2.0/24, we need to give that access to the internet so that it can do things like updates, etc. And we're going to do this in one of 2 ways. The first thing that we're going to do is we are going to deploy a NAT instance so that, again, those instances that are in the private subnet can get access to the internet. So we're going to deploy a NAT instance first, and then we're going to deploy a NAT gateway so that you can see the compare and contrast of what it would look like for the managed service, essentially the platform NAT gateway that AWS offers and manages and scales, and what it would look like to do it traditionally by deploying an actual VM or a server that is acting as a NAT. We're going to start off by creating a NAT instance and seeing if we can give access to the internet outbound to our DB server first. To do that, from the management console, we want to go into EC2. And inside of EC2, we're going to go ahead and click on Launch Instances. You want to click on the Community AMIs on the left here, and then in the search, just simply type in NAT, and you'll find that there's a ton of them. For the purpose of our example, I'm going to simply select the first one that shows up. Now down here, you can specify the type of instance that is going to be associated with this, what type of hardware you're going to use this on. Remember during the lecture, we talked about, how much can a particular instance handle in terms of traffic, right? So the beefier the instance, the more memory, more RAM, the more load that it can handle. Now for the purpose of our example, I'm going to go with the cheapest one and the lowest configuration here. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and click on Next. And down here, I want to make sure that it's in the right VPC for starters, and I also want to make sure that it's in the right subnet. Now remember, the NAT goes into the DMZ. So right now, the wrong subnet is selected. So from the drop-down menu here, I'm going to go ahead and select DMZ. I want to make sure that it's associated with an elastic IP address, so I'm going to go ahead and enable that as well. I'm going to leave everything else at default, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on Next. Everything at default here as well. I'm going to give it the name NAT just to keep things simple. And we're going to go ahead and let's go ahead and add a few more lines in here. So let's go ahead and add, for example, HTTP and HTTPS. And we're going to keep everything else at default. Oops, let's go ahead and give it the world, basically. And next. Launch. We do have the key pair. All right, so while this is launching, and again, we can go up here into Services, EC2, and we can take a look at it being initializing and everything. Now, while this is being done, I have a pop quiz for you. What is the next logical step in this configuration? What do we need to do in order to give the private subnet access to the internet through this NAT server? Anyone? Bueller? Okay, very well. So if somebody said we have to modify the routing table, then you are absolutely correct. We have to create a new routing table, or we have to modify an existing routing table to give access through this NAT instance. However, before we do that, there is a configuration that you have to do to essentially NAT instances. And what that is right-clicking that NAT instance, dragging down here to where it says networking, and then what we want to do is change the source destination check. So if I click down here on source destination, now you're probably wondering, well, Eli, whoa, why are we changing this? It's already enabled. Why are we disabling it? Every instance from a security perspective is supposed to check the source and destination packets to make sure that it's secure, it's communicating securely. However, remember, this particular instance is a NAT instance. Its function is to actually route packets from different instances on the subnet. So if you keep this enabled, then when you go to associate the route, it's not going to pop up because the route's not going to detect this as a NAT instance, so it won't give you that option. Disabling that is signaling to the route table and to the environment that, hey, this is a NAT. Its purpose is to route traffic and packets from different instances, and as a result, you're not supposed to check the source and destination. So what I want to do here is go ahead and disable it. Once I've done that, now we want to get back into our VPC. So I'm going to go ahead and click up here, and then we're going to go up to VPC. From our VPC, we want to go into the route table. Now, we can certainly modify an existing route table, but again, for the purposes of completing this exercise, I'm going to go ahead and create a new route table, and I'm going to simply call it NAT. It's associated with the right VPC. Once that happens, I want to make sure I've selected the correct route table, and then I want to come down here to where it says routes. And we've done this before, right, with the Internet Gateway, so this is familiar to you guys. I'm going to go ahead and click on Edit. I'm going to add a route. Inside the target here, you'll see that I now can select the instance, not just the Internet Gateway. I can select the NAT instance. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm also going to just allow 0.0.0.0 to basically connect. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Once that's saved, now we have to associate the subnet that is going to route through this NAT gateway. So if I click on subnet associations down here, I want to associate the database subnet, this particular subnet, because this is where my database server is located. So I'm going to go ahead and click on edit, and I'm going to select that particular database subnet, and I'm going to go ahead and click on save. Excellent. So we've associated the subnet, we've associated the route, or we've created a route. Now it's time to test our theory and see if DB01 has access to the internet. All right, so let's try to go ahead and go to Google here. Now there's something wrong. I can't seem to access the internet. Can anyone help? How do we troubleshoot this? What did I do wrong? Did I miss a step? Was there something that I misconfigured? Where do we start? Let's go ahead and minimize this and go back to the management console and see if we can figure out what happened, right? So if I click on my running instances, the NAT is in here. Let's go ahead. Maybe it's the route table, right? So I don't know. Let's go through and go to the VPC, and let's go into our route tables and just make sure that it's associated with the right subnet. Maybe it's the wrong subnet I associated with. So let's click on NAT subnet association here. It's DB, so that's definitely correct. Let's make sure that the route is properly configured. That looks okay. So what else can I be looking at? What else can you think of that could be the problem? Anyone? Well, let's go through, again, take a look at this instance here. We're going to click on running instances, and let's click on NAT. If I scroll down here, what could possibly be something that we've misconfigured? Maybe it's the security group. Maybe we don't have the right rules for inbound and outbound. Could that be it? Let's go ahead and take a look. So this is the security group that I have. Let's go ahead and, for viewing purposes, raise this. For inbound traffic, so during the demonstration earlier on when we were configuring this, I said HTTP and HTTPS, but apparently I clicked on POP3 and on SMTPS. So I have the wrong inbound rules. So the traffic isn't going to flow, well, because I haven't allowed it to flow. So let's go ahead and fix this. So if I click on edit, and let's go ahead and now select the right one, which is HTTP. And for the second one, let's go ahead and select HTTPS. I'm going to go ahead and scroll to the right here. Let's go ahead and save this. All right, let's go back into that instance and see if we can connect to the internet now. Let's go ahead and hit Google again. Bada bing, bada boom, voila. Now, I went through this exercise on purpose for a couple of different reasons. First of all, during the configuration, you can get cocky. You can get confident. You can think, I know exactly where this is. And from the drop-down menu, you're just, selecting things real quick. I wanted to do this because it happens to the best of us, myself included. And the way I actually built this exercise is actually when I was practicing this demo, I did that mistake and I had to go through this. So I thought it would be a good way to convey to you how to start to think about troubleshooting, how to backtrack the things that you've done. And this should apply to everything that you're doing. You should always be able to backtrack. And I wanted to show you the impact of the security group, the inbound rules, the outbound rules, etc. So we have now given access to DB01 outbound to the internet. You still can't connect directly to it. You have to go use a hop server or a jump server to connect to it, something that's already on the inside network, and we're using Web01. So this is how you connect or how you configure a NAT instance. Now let's take a look at how we would configure the NAT gateway, the managed services NAT that AWS offers. Let's go back into the management console. All right, now to create a NAT instance, what we want to do is we want to go into the VPC again. So I'm going to go ahead and select VPC. And on the left here, I'm going to go ahead and click on NAT gateway. And it's very simple to create a NAT gateway. You're just going to give it, basically select the correct subnet that you want to associate this with. Remember, this is a DMZ type service. So we're going to drop this in the DMZ. It's basically the same type of process, but instead of configuring an instance, you're configuring a service. Now remember, because this is in the DMZ, what does it need? It needs a public IP address. So I'm going to go ahead and allocate one to it. And then we're just going to simply create it. Now, you can always go to the route table and begin routing, but just for the purposes of completion of the exercise, let's go take a look at this NAT gateway. If I click on F5 real quick here to refresh it, you'll find that this is currently in a pending state. Now, this is going to take less than a minute to complete, but you'll notice that there are really no options here for you to configure other than to delete the NAT gateway if you choose to do so. Once the status is available, let's go through the route table now. And what I want to do is select the same route table that we used for our NAT, except we're going to change the NAT instance that it's associated with. And instead of going with ours, we're going to select the service that we just created. So you'll see down here that it's already associated with one. So what I want to do is click on Edit. And down here, I'm going to go ahead and remove ours. And automatically, you'll see that you'll have a menu of options to select from. This is the one that we've configured, and this is the service one. So I'm going to go ahead and select the service one, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on Save. Okay, subnet association is still okay. So now that I have this configured properly, let's go ahead and log in to the web server or to the database server and just make sure that we have internet connection. And let's try a different site. Let's go to maybe CNN. Excellent. So we have internet access through the NAT gateway that we've just created as well. And this is how you create a NAT instance and a NAT gateway using the AWS Management Console.